Ministry Conversations podcast. This podcast is all about equipping, encouraging, and inspiring youth pastors weekly with topics that are brought to the table by youth pastors from all over the world. And now here's your host for this week, Melissa Stevenson.
Hi, welcome to the show. This is Student Ministry Conversations. I'm your host today, Melissa, and then I've got my friend Leah here, and we're going to talk about all things Christmas and working in a church, because I feel like that's a whole new world. And so before I get started, please go to our website, studentministryconversations.org, and check out all of our past ideas and shows and blog articles. There's all kinds of fun things on there. Our goal today is just to equip you to be a better a leader, a better person in your church, and to find out new ways to do things and to talk about stuff. So, my friend Leah, so this will not be the only time you're on the show because I have some other things that we need to talk about. But for Christmas, you're one of the best ones I know that talks about boundaries, and so that's one of the big things I want to talk about today.
What a compliment! I'm so honored.
I know that's like your thing. I feel like so. Give us your spiel. What do you do, and how did you get to be where you are?
Yeah. So I am a mom of 3 small kids. I also get to serve as the Life Kids pastor at Radiant Life Church in Abilene, Texas. I've been doing that. I just started my 9th year in that role, and very much was a part of this church. It was our church home. I was leading 3-year-olds and loved it, right in the middle of my comfort zone. And then God called me right out of that comfort zone to be the kids pastor. And here I am all these years later, living it.
And then you worked for ACU before this, right?
So I worked in Christian camping prior to that. Got to work on the campus of ACU for their summer camp program. So yeah, I'm not this old, but been in ministry about 15 years. Yeah.
I feel that too. Yes. Like, wait, when did that happen? The years just
that old, not sure.
Right. So we wanted to talk today about Christmas and how it is a different experience when we're working in the church versus just going to the church. For example, last night I was at another Christmas party, and a teacher said to me, "Are y'all excited about the break?" And I was like, no, because all the things are still happening. Like there practically is no break for us. And so I've got a couple of questions that we can go through. So as a person that works at the church, Christmas season can be incredibly busy, right? We've got all the things going on. Mm-hmm. So how do you manage the increased demands of ministry during that time?
Yeah. So, a couple of things, a bit of context for me and just what I get to do is that I don't really work for an events-based church. And so yes, the Christmas season kind of yields itself to more things, but we aren't putting on a pageant or a special Christmas play or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
One of our big focuses is on our weekend experiences. And so we pour a lot, especially during the Christmas season, we pour more into those kind of weekend experiences to make that a place for people to come and get to know Jesus. And so, yes, we have more things kind of going on, but perhaps not as much as maybe some other people that work in ministry, right?
Absolutely, right.
And so kind of as we head into the Christmas season, if you've worked in ministry at all, you've probably heard this phrase that your family is your first ministry or is your first priority or something like that. And I think that's especially true during this season, but I think probably even a step farther than that. For me, as we head into the Christmas season, I think I've got to myself as my first ministry. I've got to lead myself well first. Mm-hmm. And before I can lead others. I think especially in kids and youth ministry, as we're working with the next generation, it's really easy to focus on how we're preparing our kids, our students, our parents, how are we equipping them for this kind of season of Advent, anticipation, getting ready for it, but to miss it ourselves as leaders. And so I've been there, right? I've missed it. I've gotten to Christmas Day and thought, oh yeah, I didn't prepare my own heart. And so I think that's one thing that I try to be really intentional about. And this is a busy time. So that's not to say that you've got to do an in-depth Bible study, or you've got to join a group, or you've got to, it could just be maybe reading through the Gospel of Luke, or, in your own personal study time. It could be listening to some podcast about
Mhm.
Advent and the Christmas story or something like that, kind of as you go about your day. It doesn't have to be an additional task, if you will, on top of
Yes.
your long and growing to-do list, but just to head with intention into the
Mhm.
season of anticipation. So,
Do you think that intention and finding those things that you can do maybe while you're doing other things with
yeah,
multitasking moms,
yeah,
but do you think that's important to show our kids and our youth kids, our students, our actual own children, how to do that as well? Like this is how to do life in ministry, but also like ministry during Christmas time. So the
yeah,
mimicking, yeah,
definitely. Always more is caught than taught, right?
yes,
I have a little um, daily like Advent devotional that I do with my own kids. We do it every single morning when we wake up. And, sometimes it's hard to really gauge. Are they listening? Right. We've
Mhm.
all felt this in ministry. Are they listening? Are they getting it? Are they paying attention? And just last weekend, it was Saturday. And so we kind of all slept a little bit later and didn't do it first thing. And the day went on, and I was getting ready to put him to bed Saturday night. And my oldest, my 10-year-old, said, "Wait, Mom, we didn't read the Bible today." I was like, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I
Could he have
noticed.
told me the story from yesterday? I don't know, but he
Mhm.
knows that's what we do every day. That's how we start our day. We read the Bible every morning. And so
Mhm.
I think definitely,
I
definitely true.
love that.
More is caught than taught.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so during a typical week for y'all, so it sounds like for your experience that maybe things are not changing during the week in December as they are. I know y'all do different things in the summer, but would you say your December week is different than your normal week, or is it just still the same? These are my tasks for the week.
I would say that like my December weeks are fuller. One of the things that we do is we intentionally prepare our building to be a place where people want to come
Mm-hmm.
during the holiday season. And so, decorating, but not just decorating, is how do we help people feel at home there? How do we help people kind of begin to break down their walls once they walk into our building? And so, a lot of that honestly happens in October and November.
Mm-hmm.
And
Getting ready.
so by the time we get to December, my week is not necessarily focused on like an event, but really intentional things about how we honor volunteers, how we prepare ourselves to be set up for rest
Mm-hmm.
by working ahead, doing some things for the beginning of the year, while also balancing all of the things. I think I've been to my kids' school maybe 6 or 7 times in the past 2 weeks, right? For all the
Mm-hmm.
events and parties, and trying to balance all of that with all of the things that still have to be done.
That makes sense. That does make sense.
Yeah.
So, do you think there's unique pressures when you work at a church around Christmas, especially when the focus on programs and activities and family events? Do you feel like that there is pressure to do more that from outside sources?
I think that's kind of our day and age that we live in,
Hmm.
that um, there is pressure to kind of capitalize, if you will, on this opportunity of Christmas. We know Christmas is
Yes.
so much more, right,
Right. No,
than an
but we got to
opportunity.
get the visitors, and so therefore we have to do the
Gotta
things, right? Yeah.
gotta get the visitors, and it's gotta be done well, right? And
Hmm.
I think, one thing that helps me, kinda helps people at our church, is we think a lot about our mission and how do things help us accomplish our mission. So something might be really fun and awesome and exciting, but if it doesn't help us accomplish our mission, it might
Hmm.
not be the best use of our time, especially during busy seasons like this. And so that's one thing that we found to be really helpful, is like looking at our core values, our purpose statement. Okay, does this event help us accomplish that? If
Hmm.
yes, let's do it. If not, let's not do it. And so that's one thing that's been helpful for us, to kind of set those boundaries and decide, what do we fill up our calendar with and what do we not.
I love that concept because it does sometimes, especially in churches, that we feel like we have to do the things because the other church is doing the things, like it's keeping up with the Joneses
Yeah.
in ministry.
Yeah.
And so, for example, around the corner from me is one of our bigger churches in town. And of
Yeah.
course, the
Yeah.
parking lot was filled when they did Breakfast with Santa. And I'm like, oh, that would be so fun to do. But is that our thing? Like,
Right.
so we
Right.
need to, our thing, I think, has always been our Christmas Eve service.
Yep.
because we are a very old church, a very traditional church. And so we do have those that come out from the woodwork that are looking for that candlelight service in a building that's 80 years old. So
Yes,
do
it's
math.
beautiful.
Yes. 60 years old. I do math. But yeah, and so I think that has to be our thing rather than trying to do all the other
Yes.
things that we could do. So
You've
that
got to
makes a
find
lot of
your
sense.
unique place in the market.
Yes, yeah, your niche.
Yeah.
We'll use all our business words. Yes,
Yeah.
your niche. So the holiday season is demanding for lots of pastors. So what do boundaries look like for you personally during Christmas, and why are they important?
Yeah, I do love a good boundary. It's
You
true.
do,
It's
you
true.
do.
Um, I think that boundaries help keep our sanity, especially during times like these. If you haven't read, there is a book actually called Boundaries, and the name of the author is escaping me right now, but it's an incredible book. It's a great starting place to help you kind of think through, okay, what are the most important things for me, and what do I
Mhm.
want to prioritize, and then what else can I say no to? And so like that's helped for me a lot to be able to say, okay, yes, I'm going to say yes to these things. And these things, hey, they can wait till January, or just the answer
Right.
is no,
Mhm.
right? Even within my own family, where we live, I'm sure where lots of people live, there are a multitude of incredible Christmas activities where you can go look at lights, see the zoo animals, go out to a farm, like just an incredible amount of things. And I, as a great mom, want to take my kids to do them all.
Right? Yeah.
Right? Who doesn't want to do all the Christmas things? And so this year we sat down as a family and said, okay, kids, what do you really want to do? And
Mhm.
turns out there were really only two things on their list. And so that for me as a parent helps that relieve that pressure of like, I've got to do it all
Yes.
and say, okay, we're going to prioritize these two things. And if
Mhm.
we get to a third thing, okay, that could be cool. But if we don't, we're going to feel good about these two things.
Yes.
And similarly with ministry, I think you have to think through, okay, what are the most important things? And so like you talked about your kind of niche in the market, if you will. So one thing that's important for us that we've realized is having a wonderful area where people can take a family photo. A lot of people
Yes.
that come into the doors of our church, they don't have professional family photos. They won't have that.
Mhm.
Um, but when everyone is there together for Christmas, if there's a place and a person that can sit there and take a high quality photo, that sometimes is worth more to them than anything else that we could do. Any program we could put on, anything we could do for their kids, like that can be more valuable than anything else. And so just kind of setting that boundary of, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're heading towards.
Mhm.
If other things happen, okay, but this is our priority. So
Yes. Okay, so 3 questions about that. So
yeah.
first of all, so if you have your 2 things, I love that it's what they wanted to do, like that they
Yeah.
got to pick. But secondly, I love that when you pick just those couple of things that, and you made a plan and you're intentional. Oh, there's our favorite word.
Yeah.
But you don't have to feel guilty about missing something. For
That's
example,
correct.
like yesterday, I was driving home. Yeah, that was last night. And all the lights on my way home are on sales and it's all pretty and
Yes.
everything. And I thought,
And they're beautiful.
they're so pretty, but we haven't gone in as a family and looked at lights yet. And I was like feeling the guilt of, oh, we're going to miss that if I don't like make a plan and get that on the calendar. And so I
Yep.
love that when you've only got the 2 things that after Christmas, you're not like, oh, we missed. No, 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 no. And so yay for that. Very good. So second question for your photo op, do you have a professional photographer there?
We have not ever gone that
Uh-huh.
far.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, like people's smartphones, man, they
Mhm.
take incredible
Yes.
pictures.
So do you just use their phones?
Yes, just
Okay,
use
so
their
that was gonna
phones.
be another question. How do you
That
get
way
your
they have it. You don't have to worry about transferring the photo or
Yes.
posting it somewhere or
Mhm.
linking it. You just create the right setting with the right lighting. Let them take it, and they'll
That's
take serious ones, and they'll take funny ones, and they'll
yes.
it's great. It's really
Well,
great.
and then the third thing about that I do love is the mom in the picture. Like, we have
Yes.
so many instances where mom is taking the picture, and so you're giving the opportunity for the whole family to mom be in the picture, and so that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you maintain the healthy work-life balance? You said you've been at the school how many times this week? How do you also get the work done while doing all the kids' stuff? And there certain boundaries you set with. Oh, I'm going to hold on to that question. So just start with that
Okay.
one. The work life.
The work-life balance. Yeah.
Yes.
It's it's a hard one. It
Hmm.
really is. And I don't know that there's an easy answer or a one size fits all. I think one of the things that I've realized this year is that it's okay to have hard days,
Yeah.
right? Especially this time of year, you might have a day where you know you're going to go and be at church for 12 or 13 hours. That's
Hmm.
okay. It's just one day.
Right.
And so to kind of take that imbalance to say, this day is going to be hard and long, and I'm probably not going to enjoy all of it, but that's okay because God's going to be glorified and tomorrow is going to be a new day. And so that's one thing I kind of talk myself through is like each day, okay, what do I have? Okay, like today's a more restful day for
Hmm.
me. Great, awesome, things I enjoy. And so that balances with the kind of busier days. But I think it's also to give yourself permission for, especially during this busy season, is every day doesn't have to look like it does in the middle of June or the middle of March or something like that, right?
Hmm.
Maybe I'm going to take an hour and go to my kids' school. And so that might mean I've got a few things to do after the kids go to bed that night. That's okay, and just to kind of find those like give and take moments where you can.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so this was the other question because I know you are all about your volunteers. So, are there certain boundaries you set with your team and your family and your own self? So, you've got a lot of volunteers that you are just very passionate about. So, do
Mhm.
you set different boundaries for them during this time, or is it business as usual?
In terms of like what I'm expecting of them, is that kind of
Mhm.
what you're
Yeah.
asking?
Hmm.
Yeah. So we, like I said, like we're really focused on Sundays. We are a very volunteer based. I just wrote. I've just all got all of them a Christmas present, right? So
Yes.
I'm just short of 35 volunteers right now, which is a big team to
Hmm.
lead. And the thing about December, and really what we're talking about is from Thanksgiving on, right? Is that they all have families, they all have holiday plans, they all have things that are important to them. And so I think communicating that to them first, and again, I have not always done a good job of this, but communicating to them first, like, hey, I hope you get to go see your family.
Yes.
Hey, I hope you get to celebrate. Hey, I hope you get some time away. I'm taking time away, and I hope that you do too. And to just like communicate that first and foremost, like your care for them and their own rest and their own boundaries, more than like what they could do for you, more than the ways that they could serve, but their own health. I
So
think
keep
is
talking. I'm just plugging in my laptop.
funny that you're plugging in your Christmas tree. But yeah, like just communicating that first and foremost to say, hey, we love you. I hope you take some time off, but please let me know when you're not
Right.
going to be here. Because like it's true. Like Sundays in December are hard to find enough volunteers. And again, that's okay. It's not every Sunday is not like that, but to say this is going to be a little bit harder season. And if you're
Hmm.
here, man, let's be all in. And if you're not, I hope you have a great time. So
Yes. I do like that you're giving some leeway and say, yes, I do need your help, but I also want you to do this. So
yeah.
I think that's great. So what advice would you have for those in ministry who are struggling to say no, or taking a break during Christmas, especially when the need seems so urgent? Like there is that if we don't do the things, we might miss the people kind of feeling at this time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of it is like recognizing like again your place in the market to say what is it, what part of the population or what area of town or whatever it might be, kind of what's our niche, what are we going after, instead of casting a wide net, to cast like a narrow net with
Hmm.
intention and purpose. So I think that's part of it, to kind of know your audience, if you will. I think the other thing though is that sometimes when I think we think about rest, and especially at Christmas, we might think of it in the context of um, like vacation days almost,
Right.
right? Like I'm going to, at the end of the year, I'm going to use my vacation days, which is, don't use days you don't have, obviously, but I think more than that, I think rest is a rhythm. And so in order to be set up for rest, like that has to be part of your normal like cycle and planning. You can't just not go to work one day and expect to have your lesson prepared for you for the next gathering or
Right. That
whatever.
makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And so, like, in your rhythm of work, how are you? Like, how do you work ahead? How do you have things prepped for January? How do you have things tied up? Right. Do you have all your receipts turned in, Melissa? Because it's the end of the budget and you got to have all that
I
done.
do. And I have my budgets done for next year.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to have things right. You got to have all your T's crossed, all your I's dotted. Like, you've got to have it all ready for you to be able to unplug for a day, a week, whatever that looks like for you and your ministry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it takes intentional preparation to not just show up and say, "Oh, I didn't get any time off," but to prepare for that in
Right.
advance, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So,
Well, and I think with the part of the saying no stuff is that sometimes I know I am super guilty of this, of taking on responsibilities in the church that are not really mine, but
yes.
I feel like they need to be done. And so,
Uh-huh.
yeah, that I just need to, right? So I got to stay in my lane is one
Yeah.
of the things, and not be like, hey, that'd be really cool to do. It's not really in my purview, but I guess I could
Mhm.
do it. No, 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 just do youth stuff. Like that's I'll stay in my little area of expertise here.
This is hard for me as well because I see things that I think are important and I want to jump in and do them, and then I wonder how I got here.
Yes, yeah, yeah. There was a meme that I saw yesterday that was like, I accidentally became important at work, and now my life is ruined. Like,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
I took on too many things. Okay, so Christmas is also a time when you want to be present with your family and loved ones. So, how do you make space for both ministry and personal time? So, I'll start with that one because let's see, when I first started at this church, we do van ministry with the kids, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I made the plan, haha, to go
Yeah.
get the youth for Christmas Eve service, which meant that I had to take them home. And my kids were 10 and 6, I think, at the time.
Mhm.
And by the time I drove all the youth kids home and got back to my house, on Christmas Eve, my kids were already in bed, and I lost it. Like,
Yeah.
I missed it. I was, bad mother, but I was just like bawling in the living room. And so that's something that we do not do anymore. Our youth are really invited to come to Christmas Eve service, but I would really like it if their families came with them. And so their parents must bring them to Christmas Eve service, and we don't run the van anymore. So that was my, like, how did I balance both things? So, any
Yeah.
stories?
Yeah, no, I remember that for sure.
Yes.
I think one thing is like you have to give yourself grace for especially Christmas Eve. Like so at our church we're really big on like we might do service Christmas Eve or even on the 23rd, but Christmas Day, there's no
Mhm. Right.
services, there's no commitments, even if it's on a Sunday, nothing. We're not doing anything on Christmas Day. And so you have to just realize that it might look a little bit different than what traditional families look like, or maybe what even you had hoped it would look like, right?
Mhm.
So one thing for us is we usually have Christmas Eve service, and my husband is the sound guy, and so
Yes.
he's
That's
there
fine.
until dusk. And regularly on Christmas Eve, we're eating fast food
Yes.
at 8 o'clock at night, which is
Mhm.
perhaps not the ideal picture of Christmas Eve with your family,
Yeah,
right?
we're hitting the grocery store on the way home, and the grocery store is going, "Please leave so we can close."
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We can go home and have
Mhm.
Christmas. Yes. And I kind of laugh about it now because it's like, well, here we are again in the Whataburger drive-through on Christmas Eve. But just to realize, like, even though it looks different, doesn't mean it's bad. Like, there can still be joy in those kind of funny, quirky
Mhm.
rhythms. It usually means that our kids are with a grandparent, and you know what? Our kids are having a great time
Yes.
with their grandparents doing whatever they're doing, and then they know that and like on Christmas Day, we're all in for them, right?
Mhm.
We've finished up all our responsibilities and we're all in for them. And so I think part of that is like giving grace for yourself to say, hey, this is gonna look different and that's okay.
Yeah. We Our kids are always with us because we don't have any family in town. So ours get to see what it looks like to serve. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, they are the ones that every year have the bucket to pick up the candles. Like
Candles. Yeah.
they are the bucket children, and so they pick those up. They make sure that things get handed out, and so, but yeah, we're the last to leave and turning all the lights off, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I do like that they get to see what that means and that what that could mean in their future
Yeah.
church life, right?
Yeah.
So I do like that. But yeah, it is always like, what are we going to eat? When we're always driving in the morning to come back from my parents from Christmas. And
Mm.
so we're like running into town, practically just jumping out of the car into the church.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it definitely looks different.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, it's not that picture perfect. Everyone's sitting at the dining room
Yeah.
table with the turkey and
This is not a Hallmark movie. That's correct.
exactly. Yeah. I was thinking Rockwell paint or who was
Yeah.
the
Norman Rockwell.
yes, Norm Rockwell painting. So it doesn't look like that, but that's okay. And so I love your idea of giving the grace, of giving yourself permission to say, this isn't what this looks like, and that's fine. I think
Yeah.
that's really important to some of our younger members in ministry who are
Mhm.
just now starting their families. That if you're, what is your idea now, and is it going to change, and is that okay for it to change?
Yeah. Yeah.
That we're
And
not stuck on
also, I
something.
think managing the expectations of like your larger family. Like, do people
Yes.
expect you to be somewhere on Christmas or Christmas Eve
Mm-hmm.
or whatever? I feel like in the context of like my bigger family, my siblings, I get some grace because I have a sister-in-law that's a doctor, and so her schedule's all over the place too. And so that kind of helps. It's a lot like ministry, right? It looks
Mm-hmm.
different. I mean,
Yes.
it's bad,
Yeah.
but we'll Christmas when we can Christmas.
Well, and I wonder if that's a conversation with future spouses as well. Like
Yeah.
if they have expectations on what this looks like, that can be a big argument down the road. And so that's good, some things to think about.
Yeah.
Okay. So Christmas is also a time we already did that one. Hold on. Can you share any specific strategies or habits you've implemented to make sure that you get proper rest, especially during the final weeks of the year?
Dude, out of office. Put that out of office. Put it on your email. Put it on your internal communication app. I don't care. Put it on your Facebook, whatever. Like just that's one thing I do is there are usually twice a year, usually kind of once kind of mid-year and then at Christmas where I am unplugged and I tell them, do not call me.
Mm-hmm.
Do not call me about where the chairs go or
Right.
any problems
Mm-hmm.
or any deliveries. The only thing you can call me for is if someone passes away. Other than that, I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think obviously we can't all do that all of the time, but what does that look like in your ministry context to say, hey, I'm not going to be responding to emails this week, or I'm not going to be responding to messages, and just to communicate that up front to set that expectation. Maybe that's a staff wide expectation. Hey, everybody's going to, not respond to emails or whatever for this week. And then we're going to pick back up and hit it hard for the new year or whatever that looks like. So that's a big one for me. Out of office. Don't call me.
So we're gonna have one last question because Miss Leah has things to do today. We have lunch planned. So this is a big one in our world right now. So what do you think are signs that people are getting burned out, especially in this season? And what do you think that they can do to maybe overcome that, or not necessarily just get past it, but keep it from happening in the first place?
Yeah. So I know for me, like one sign for me that I'm kind of getting to a place of, we'll say burnout, but even before that, right, there are
Mm-hmm.
signs. And I think for me, it's like the condition of my heart. Like if I am dreading getting out of bed, if I'm dreading like the drive to work, if I'm dreading like having conversations with people, like not looking forward to it, things that maybe I used to enjoy doing,
Mm-hmm.
especially, right? For me, that's a sign of like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know about this, right? I might be headed towards not a great place. And so we were kind of talking about like the rhythm of rest. And I think that is for me has been one thing that's been like really transformational is not just kind of rest in these big moments. Yes, there's
Mm-hmm.
rest in maybe the Christmas season or maybe I unplug for a week in the summer or something like that, but just like a daily rhythm of rest. And so um I have a day off during the week, which I hope most people that work at churches do. And
Fridays.
so yeah, Fridays, here we are. Um this fall, I've been really intentional to do things on that day that bring me joy
Mm-hmm.
and that bring me rest. And so like that looks different for everyone, right? For maybe that's being with people that you love, going to lunch with people, meeting people for coffee. Maybe that's being by yourself, or like hiking, being out in nature, reading a book. And that's not to say I spend all 8 hours doing that on my day off, right? There's still groceries to get and all of
And
that.
laundry to
But
fold.
oh, yes. But to say like, hey, I'm going to do some things for me today. And I'm going to be intentional to plan those out. And so I think when you have those kind of like pockets through like weekly, monthly, whatever that looks like for you, it helps you kind of stay in a better place and not long so much for like a big break, end of the
Mm-hmm.
year kind of Christmas unplug. I heard someone talk once about how, if you feel like you need a Sunday off to keep going, then you're probably not in a good place, because one Sunday off isn't really going to move the needle, because Sunday's always coming, right?
Right. Yeah.
It just keeps repeating. No matter what you do, Sunday's always coming. And so if you're kind of feeling that, oh, I just need a week off, I just need a Sunday off, then that might be a sign, hey, I need to have some better habits, establish some better rhythms there. So.
Mm-hmm. And maybe have a conversation with your heart about where you are. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to thank you for taking the time in this very busy season to add one more things to the calendar, and spending time talking to us about all this. I think this was a great conversation. We could definitely talk way more about all these kinds of things. So thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it. So if you out there in listening land, if you have an idea for a show, if you want to come and talk to us about something, please drop us a line on our Facebook, our Instagram, our emails. They're all of our names after studentministryconversations.org. And let's have you on the show. We always want more people to come and talk about more things. And maybe you have a perspective that we are not thinking about yet. So thanks for listening today. Y'all have a great Christmas. We're so thankful that you are with us today. Have a great day. Bye.